So welcome back everybody, and thank you to all of the people that have subscribed and also who have sent me comments. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Kim, and I am going to take you through reports today. So I've had some requests to do reports and budgets. So we'll look at reports today and then I'll upload budgets later on. So you have all your information in Homebank, and we're using our fictional characters Abby and Sam, and we'll keep using these two people over the entire length of these posts because it's great to play around with these numbers and show you what to do. So we're going to look at reports. So when you're in Homebank, if you go up to your top menu, you have reports and you have statistics, trend time, balance, budget, and vehicle cost. Statistics is where you can see where your money's gone, and that's specific categories. So we're going to start with statistics. So here we have all of Abby and Sam's spending over the entire time that we've been putting it in. So this is just really for a month or two. But what you can do is you've got this menu on the left, and then you've got all these other little visuals and things you can use on the top. So at the moment, we see everything for the month of May and June. So imagine that we're only in June and we want to see how we've gone. You don't want to look at 2 months. So you just click on the date that you want to start with, and then you click on the date that you want to end with. And now you have just the transactions for June. Now at the moment we can only see expense, we can't see income. So if you go up the top, you can see view by category or type expense. So you could just see income, just expense, or if you click total, you can see the income and the expenses, and that also gives you the amount that Abby and Sam have saved in that period. And if you go up to the right-hand side, you can also see it up the top on the right as well. So that's how you change the dates. Now we'll look at the different views. So at the moment, we have the view of the table, and if you click on a particular item and click on the little book, then you can see what was included in that total. So their car expenses included some money for fuel and some money for maintenance. Now, what I also like to do is I like to look at where the money is coming from, which account it's coming from. So I tend to sort on the account. So sometimes you can see that for their eating out, they've put money on the credit card, they've put money on the everyday account. And I like to look and see, well, how much is going out of like a joint account or an individual account versus how much is going on the credit card. And that gives me an idea of sort of where we're prioritizing spending the money. And then you can also look at it and say, well, what about the dates? You can sort it by date from least, the earliest date in the month to the last date. You can sort by category. So you can say, okay, well, I want to just look at everything that's petrol, and then there was a bit of maintenance, one-off incident that happened, and it's not really a normal month-to-month expense. So you can get a better idea of what your normal month-to-month expenses are if you exclude some things. So for instance, let's see if there is any major sort of one-off expenses. So we've got mostly it's going to happen in things like insurance and in car expenses or in home maintenance. So you can see here that they actually had a larger amount of insurance go out that month to AMI for home or contents insurance. So we might want to exclude that just to get a better idea of what we could have saved if we hadn't have had that bigger expense. So we would go up to filter, and we would go down to categories, and we would go into, if we just look at it, it's going to be insurance, home renters insurance. And we go OK. Then we click back on to insurances, and you can see that that's now been excluded. So you can see that Abby and Sam might have been able to have saved $1,600 if it wasn't for the fact that they had that bigger expense. Now, if you want to reset everything, you just reset. Now, reset will reset your dates as well, so just keep that in mind. You'll have to just go back and put your dates back in, and then put in your totals again, and you can go back to where you were. So that's just a quick summary of this, of using the little book. You can also click on percentages. So if you click on percentages, that gives you the percentage that that expense takes up of your total. So you can see that their biggest expense naturally is going to be rent, and that is at 38% of their total. Then we can look at this in a different way. So we can look at it as a chart, and we can see if we hover over, rent obviously is our biggest expense. Everything below the line is what we're spending. Everything above the line is our income. We can do it as a pie chart, which is really how a donut chart, which is really helpful. Now, if you take it off and just put it on expense, then again, you can see where your biggest proportions are. And it might be that you want to start cutting down in some areas. So you look at your big proportions and say, well, car expenses was quite large, but we had that. We did have some car maintenance. Clothing is actually not too bad. And then we have groceries. That's actually not too bad, all things considered at the moment. Hobbies and leisure, that's 7.69% or $480 in a month. So the question is maybe we could cut down somewhat on that. So that's a quick overview of statistics. So now what we'll do is we'll go up and look at trend time. Now trend time shows you the total change, the total of your transactions in a month. So we can see, and we do it by account. So we can see that in Abby and Sam's everyday account, in May, they spent 1,033, or they actually saved 1,033. In June, they saved 947. And in July, that they haven't put their transactions through yet. So we'll just ignore that one for now. But that's in their everyday account. In their emergency fund, they went down by $352. So when you click again on the little book, you can see, remember they bought a couch in May. So they took money out of their emergency fund to pay for the couch, but then they put $300 back in as part of their regular savings. So this just shows you their net movement in the emergency fund was $352. Then we go down and see their credit card. Now, it's good to see that their credit card was a lot lower in June than it was in May. And then we can look at their personal loan and we can look at their house fund. So that's what you do for the trend time report. If you want to go select all, then, and you can do accumulate, or you can do not accumulate. But if you go select all, then it adds up all of those accounts and the transactions, and it says what was the total movement through all of your accounts for each of the months. So they went ahead by $482, and we can look at this in a graph form. So in May they went ahead by nearly $500, but in June they really went ahead by nearly $1,300. So now we're going to look at the balance report. Now in this report, again, you can change the dates and you can also choose your accounts, and this just shows you your running balance. Now what I like to use this for is I like to look and say, how low did my account get to in a month, specifically with an everyday account or with a joint account? And my goal is that minimum goes up over time. So if there's nothing else you can do in terms of saving for an emergency fund, the bare minimum you can do is to get the minimum of your everyday account to rise each month. Then you're just giving yourself that buffer, and you're not going to potentially go into overdraft territory or go to the point where you've got no money left in that account. Something goes wrong and you can't fund it. Sometimes we have bigger credit card bills and we just need to make sure we've got that wiggle room. So you can see here that on the 4th of May, they got down to $836. Then they went up again because they got a good amount of income in on that day. And then it kept rising, and then it kept going down again. There's another good amount of income comes in on the 20th of the month. Now, we can look at what they're doing on the 20th of the month. They are saving. We can click on the little book, And we can see that they are saving to their emergency fund and their house fund, which is excellent on the 20th of the month. You wouldn't want to do that on the beginning of the month because otherwise that would put them into overdraft. So right when they get a big hit of salary, they do their savings, which is good. But then you look at it and say, well, what happened on the 4th? And usually that's when you're clearing your credit card. So question is did they have to pay the credit card off on the 4th? Could they have paid it off on the 5th? And that's when income would have come in. You don't want to miss paying your credit card off, and you want to pay it all off each month if you can. But also just look at the timing, because if they were able to pay it on the 5th without any penalties or interest, then it would have been a zero-sum game and they wouldn't have gone all the way down to $836. And then look again and say, okay, what happened again on the 3rd of June? And that's because the credit card bill would have gone out. There's a big credit card bill that went out. So in a few more videos, we'll start talking about how you can allow for the bigger bills that come up in future months. You can start thinking about that because you want to think, well, okay, if I've got some really big bills coming in, I don't want to drain my everyday account. So what can I do differently to avoid that? And it might be that maybe one month they don't save into their emergency fund because they're just going to have to drag the money back out again anyway. So it's just thinking ahead a little bit, just to make sure that you're not going into overdraft and you're not going to be incurring any penalties or extra interest. So that's the everyday account. You can see the emergency fund, and that's moving up and down. And in May, because they bought a couch, they pulled some money back out of the emergency fund just to make sure that they could cover it. And you can see their credit card and all their other accounts. So that's the balance report. So it's actually quite useful. But again, there's a bunch of numbers there, but it's what you do with those numbers that matter. And then the next report is the budget. Now, at the moment, there's nothing in the budget because we haven't set one. So I'll show you how to do that in the next session. And then there's vehicle cost. Now, if you are tracking your vehicle costs, it's actually really helpful because what you do is in the memo part, you put down, so if we go into one of their expenses, so let's look it through that instead. Here we go, petrol. So if I double click on that, and I've got to unlock it to be able to do that, so that's okay. You can see down in the tags, what you can do is in the tags or in the memo, you can put down the odometer reading on your car and the fuel, how many litres of fuel you put into the car. So that means that you can start to look at your vehicle report and say, well, how far are we going and how much is it costing us for a tank of gas? So you put in the vehicle and then you can start to see how much fuel you're actually using over a period of time. It's very helpful if you have a business and you're claiming some of your vehicle expenses because then obviously you can put that into your tax return. If you're in New Zealand, you can do that. So that helps you to just track that. But it's also helpful if you're just trying to manage how much you're paying on petrol. And you can start to see when you are buying more petrol, how much it's costing per litre, how far you're going, etc. So it is actually quite useful to have that. That's something I haven't seen in other apps. So that's quite helpful. So that ends this session on reports. So I hope that was helpful for you as well. Like I said, the next one I do will be on the budgets. And we'll look at setting a budget for Abby and Sam. And then there's a couple of extras I'll do after that, which just questions the idea of budgets and gives you some different ideas for other things you can do instead of budgets if you find budgets aren't really helpful. So have fun and let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, what else you want to see, and because I'm happy to create whatever videos are going to help you out. So chat soon and see you later.